Hey everybody, it's Christi Friesen, and today I'm going to be your guru of polymer clay, and we're going to do something fantastic. This is a third in the series of the secrets of polymer clay here at the Fire Mountain Gems and Beads Jewelry Studio. Now, if you haven't seen number 1 and 2, stop, watch them, I'll wait for you. Welcome back. Okay, so now we're going to do the third in the series. The idea of this is for us to just jump right into polymer clay. Whether you've ever even heard of the thing before, touched it or played with it, I want you to get your hands in it, make something, and then later you can add to your knowledge about this wonderful product because there's a whole bunch of videos here at Fire Mountain that you can explore. I've got some, other people have some. You're going to find out tons of things. You can do that later after you're done playing with me. So today we're going to do a slab-tastic earring. One of the things that polymer clay can do is to create a little sheet, like a little slab, that you can put decoration on, and then you can use essentially cookie cutters to cut them all up and make crazy fun things like this. Now, I've turned these into earrings because that's quite a thing that a lot of people enjoy doing, is making these slabs and cutting them out into different earring shapes. But if you're a pendant kind of person, make that into a pendant. If you're one of those people that like to wear a diadem of dangles, you could do that too. There's not as many of you, but I say rock it. Anyway, we've got some earrings here, and this is what we're going to do with them. Shall we get going? All right. All we want to do is start with polymer clay. Now, in the first 2 of this series, we did some fun tricks with blending, especially number 2. We got kind of crazy with this twisty thing and made a blended look. I'm going to do that again. So if you don't know what to do, how to do that, go back to that video and take a look at it. But all we're doing is like little scraps of clay like this. We play with the process and voila, we end up with a nice blended slab of clay. Now you can use a roller, you can use an empty wine bottle, I don't know how it got empty, but whatever, or you can use a pasta machine to flatten your clay out into this kind of a slab. I would say it's as thick as a coin, like a quarter coin, that kind of a thickness there. And then that's all we need. I want this big enough so that I can cut some of these circle shapes out of. All right, so we've got this, and I'm going to touch it all over. I'm a big fan of using fingerprints as a texture because when you touch everything, if you accidentally make a little nick or whatever in it, all you got to do is touch it again and it goes back to that beautiful velvety texture. All right, so we've got our slab, we're ready to go. I have these wonderful little circle cutters, but if you don't have a circle cutter, I can even use, like, these are cannoli forms. You might find some fun things around the house to use, but the circle cutters are the easiest. This one is going to be the final size of my earring pendant, but what I'm going to do is make a little mark on the clay surface, just a little bit, to give me a guide. That way I know to keep all my business inside of that. Now, if you want to make a bunch of these things, you can literally have a slab and put pattern everywhere and then cut it all out willy-nilly. But since we're just going to make this one to start with, I'm going to go ahead and make that little circle, keep everything inside, and then I will cut it out with this. Now, you might say, well, why don't you just cut that out first and put stuff on it? That seems like a good idea, but here's why I don't. Do you notice this finished one, how some of these flowers are cut off? Here's a secret you might not know about designing. When you make something bigger and then slice part of it off, it just looks so much better than putting something dab smack in the middle, because number 1, it's never in the middle and always looks like you're off. But having things that have left the page and they've vanished kind of lets our imagination go a little wild, like what was outside of there. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get other little kinds of clay bits to create a flower with some funky little leaves. I have just this scrap of pinky colors. I love polymer clay scrap. Every time you make something, you have little bits and pieces of it left over. I put them in a big jumble, and then when I go to make something, I look around and find the color I want. In this case, pinks and peaches and little yellow specks and funky things like that. Wad them all up, run it through my machine a bit to blend it, and I've got an instant thing to be able to use. Now I'm going to turn this into little teeny petals, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to make little balls about this big. So when you have a scrap like that, just kind of pinch it a bit till it has a point, Then you can nip off a little bit and roll that around in your fingers and plonk it onto your work surface, and you'll have just that little ball. And to make the little balls into petals, I just roll it back and forth till it's sort of that oval shape. Then I take that oval and smosh it in my fingers, and there we go. Instant petal. Now, I did a bunch of those when you weren't looking because that's boring and tedious, and if you had to watch me make 40,000 petals, I think you'd probably wander off to something else. So I'm just going to take these that I already made and start pressing them down in a flower shape. Now, this is the same kind of flower that you did in kindergarten. You know, it's daisy style, everything's just sticking out in all directions. That is all you need. And when you use scrap clay that has other little bits in it, you get a nice kind of blend going on, which makes your flower petals look even more exciting. So I'm just putting them down in this crazy little circle. And you know, I've got 5 or 6 petals. You can make it every single one has always got 5 petals, or you could just see what happens. I think, you know, you'll be able to tell as you go along which one suits you better. All right, so I'm going to just make a flower here. And remember that thing I said about them kind of falling off the edge? I'm going to do that so that this is going to come off this edge there. So it's not going to be all the way inside my circle. And I'm going to do the same in this big old open spot. But you want to go ahead and put them on there so that they all look finished. You don't want to just leave it half done, all right? So even though most likely this petal will get completely cut off, I'm going to put it on here. So there we go. And we have one last one to make over here. Also remember that this circle is bigger than the final one will be. So try to keep your stuff clustered into the middle. And let's get that last little circle up here to make a flower petal out of that one. Aren't we looking so exciting so far? Okay, there we go. All right, petals, flowers, great. Now what about some leaves? We're going to do the exact same thing with some green clay, and I've nipped off a little circle just like that, and I formed that into that same sort of oval shape. If you want to pinch the ends so that the leaves are a little bit more pointy, you totally can. And I'm just going to scatter a few of those around wherever it looks like leaves are needed. Now, I didn't make a lot of contrast between these leaves and the background. You certainly can, but you do not have to. I'm going to put just a few leaves in here. And more leaves are always better than not enough leaves, so I'll leave that up to you how many you do. All right, we're getting close. We only need something in the center of those flowers. So I've got just a little, you could do yellow. This is sort of a little scrap left over with some white in it and just a little bit of like yellow in it, but it could be pink, anything. And I'm going to do a couple little dots in here and just put maybe 3 in the center of each flower. Now you could leave it exactly like this, but I'm going to go back now and add some little details and little colorations and little you know, dots and smooshes just to make it look more fun. But if you do it just like this, that's enough. You don't have to do anything else if you don't want to. All right, so we got 3, 3, and 3. I vary the sizes too, just for funsies. There we go. All right, I'm going to start with the leaves. Now, in polymer clay, you can use any kind of tool that you just find around. There are specific tools for polymer clay. Here at Fire Mountain Gems, they have a lot of different tools that you can choose from. So just find what works best for you. I happen to have one of these tools. This is from my one of my special collections that I have, tools that I go to all the time. And I love it because it's got like a little bit of a blade here. But you will probably find something lying around that is very similar. I'm just going to put a line down the center of each of these leaves. And then, you know how leaves have like veins and stuff? I'm going to do that. I'm just going to press little notches all down those leaves. And look at how easy that is. Now this works really good. You could use a toothpick. That would work, a needle tool, anything where you can just make your little lines. And I only went down part of these leaves. I didn't do the entire leaf. That's up to you. Personal preference and all that. All right. Now let's do something to those petals. I think the petals look good the way they are, but what if I had a tool? I have a tool, and I could just press a little indentation, boink, right into each one. I've also found too, boink, if you make the sound effect, boink, it works so much better. So if you're struggling and it's not turning out how you want, just add sound effects. That's just the best way. Mix it up. Plus those people who are in the other room will wonder what's going on, and they might leave you alone because they might be a little frightened to come in and see exactly what's happening. Boink, one more there. All right, so now we've got these nice indentations. Now I made these colors red and green. You can make these any color that amuses you. In fact, you probably should. You should experiment with lots of different combinations of backgrounds and petal colors. You can see this one, it's yellows and pinks. Doesn't that look lovely together? I think so. Now let's get back to the needle tool, and I don't know, let's just poke a little hole in the middle of each one of these. That seems reasonable, don't you think? Okay. Now, it's ready to cut out. I used this to make my pattern, but this is the size I really wanted. So what I want to do is I want to look at this, and I'm going to look down on my piece and kind of move it around and see, is there some spot that I could cut out that would look the most exciting, where I get the most amount of flower for my pendant. And I'm just going to do right here, pressing that down, and I usually give it just a little bit of a twist, because when you just push it down, you're kind of mushing the clay. Twisting it will finish that cut. And then we can take that off, take this away, save this bits. You might want to make little earring bits or something out of that. But look at that fun little slab we've got. Isn't that fantastic? I know, super great, right? All right, well now we need to make a little way of wearing this as an earring. As you can tell here, I've got like a little eye hook here, and then we've got our earring wire that's connected with the jump ring, so we're going to have that going on. So I need to cut out another one of these. So I've got a little left over here, but what if that's a little too thick and you end up having like an Oreo cookie hanging from your head? You can put this through the pasta machine at the next thinnest setting, or you can use your roller and press it out thinner. That will work great. So I'm going to just cut this now, twist and cut, just like we did before. My blade will help me take this off the tile. I'm just kind of spatula-ing it right on off of there. All right, so I can work with it. If you got any weird scrumbles on the edge, you can just use your finger to smooth those away. And that is the technical term for polymer clay garbage bits. That's your scrumble. So now we're going to get a little eye pin. Now we've used eye pins before, and you know the drill here. All we want to do is make sure we trim a little bit of that away so it's not like too long, and we want to use some wire cutter to bend a little hook in the end so it doesn't get yanked out, because polymer clay and wire don't magically stick together. So we're going to put that little hook on there to keep it good. I'm going to take this, I'm going to place it right at the top so that that eye of the eye hook is just sitting right at the top. Then I'm going to pick up my little slab, make sure it's all clean, scrumbles be gone, and lay that gently right on top. Now let me spin it in a way that looks most exciting for my earring. I'd say right about there. And you just press that together. If you want, and I always find this to be helpful, I like to pick it up gently and just make sure that those edges are together. Sometimes they get a little bit skewed, so we want to kind of play with it. If it gets crisscrossed like you see right there, you can go by with an X-Acto knife or craft knife and just trim away any excess if it's out of the circle and you don't like it, or you need to fix something. You always can do that. So now we have got our lovely, lovely little circle. But wait, I want to show you something else. It's not done yet. I want to introduce you to the magic of adding powders to your polymer clay. One of the things that's absolutely so exciting to me about polymer clay is that this material is slightly sticky when you're playing with it. And although it is colored, you can introduce any kind of painterly effect by adding other colors on there. We could use mica powders, embossing powders, glitters, or chalk powders. And I'm going to use just a very inexpensive set of chalk pastel and add a little bit of color to this to make it super pop. So I'm going to reach over to my Magic Bucket O paint brushes and get a couple of fun ones here. And you might say, well, how do you get that big color onto here? Scraping. So I'm going to take a dark green and my tool here. Let me get this a little closer for you. I'm going to take my tool and just scratch. And see how it instantly makes powder there? So let me set this right in front of everything. Get a little bit of powder on my brush, and I'm going to just gently put it on the base of that flower. Look at the nuance you get. Isn't that so fun? Now you've got like a little darker green amongst the lighter green. It just makes it really pop. Now what if I wanted to add a little bit of color on the inside of that flower? I can do that too. Let's get a nice dark brick red. Do a little scratchy scratchers right there. And just pick that up and press it in. Look at how fun that is. You can get so much fun with this because you make your base colors and then you bring in additional colors. And finally, let's put a little bit more nice bright yellow in the center of our little baubles there, those flower innards. Okay. All right, powders. Now you can see that with just a little bit of powder on there, it really makes it look like you know what you're doing. So here's my thought, is that when you're creating something, anything that will make you look like you are really impressive, thumbs up, let's do it. Powders are one of those things that really makes you look like you're fantastic. And all you've got to do is just use a brush to put it right on the surface. All right, this is done. We're ready to bake it. Now, as I've mentioned in the other parts of this series, baking has its whole own category. We've got a video on that. You can go check that out and find out everything you need to know. Polymer clay does require a little stint in your home oven in order to get into that hardened form that we know and love. It's easy, it's simple. Your clay package will tell you the temperature and the time, and of course you can check out those videos for more details. There are also details in the description. So check the description of this video for details on baking, products, all that fun stuff. All right, so this gets baked and then it's ready to add your earring wire. Or what if you want this nice shiny glaze before you add it? You do not have to. Polymer clay is fine without anything on it. You can wear it in its natural state and it'll be great. But sometimes you want a little bit of extra shine. So let me show you how simple it is to add a glaze. First of all, as we've discussed, you've got to use a glaze that's compatible with polymer clay. You're going to use just a little driblet of it. I'm going to put just a bit here in this container, or try to anyway. There we go. And we're going to just use a nice, hopefully clean brush and just lay it right on the surface. Very, very thin coat. One thing you do not want to do is use too much glaze, because then that makes sort of a milky coating on there and it's not that fun. But just a thin little glaze and let that air dry, wash your brush. Now you are good to go. Then you can add an ear wire or you can add a jump ring or whatever you like. Fire Mountain Gems has a ton of how-tos on things like earring wires and jump rings and chains. You can find everything you need to know. All right, Slabtastic. Did you feel that this was a Slabtastic project? Because I certainly did. I can see that we could go in so many places with this. I didn't even mention that there are other kinds of cutters with shapes. Oh my gosh. So now I would love for you just to like this video, share this video, comment about this video. Do you have creative friends that want to create also? Share this with them. Did you like it? Give us a thumbs up. What kind of combinations of color did you find the most interesting? Did you have anything you found out about the process that made it easier for you and you want to share? Put those in the comments. We will all enjoy creating together. So go have a slabtastic time.